Today we travel back in time to explore a conflict that shaped the history of Europe, the 100 Years' War. This conflict not only changed the course of two nations, but it also left a lasting mark on world history. A striking name, right? But what's behind this evocative name? This war between England and France, which actually lasted more than a century, from 1337 to 1453, raises a fascinating question. Why did it last so long? What factors contributed to its length? Let's delve into this historical maze to find out. The answer isn't simple, as it involves a complex web of alliances, betrayals, and military strategies. The 100 Years' War wasn't a single event, but a series of clashes separated by truces. Each truce offered a break, but also a chance to rearm and plan the next move. Imagine a soccer game played over several generations. Each generation of players inherits the rivalries and tactics of the previous one. There were moments of intense fighting, followed by periods of relative calm. These periods of calm allowed the soldiers to rest and the leaders to rethink their strategies. This on and off nature of the conflict is one of the key factors that explains its long duration. In addition, the war was influenced by constantly changing economic, political, and social factors. To understand the length of the 100 Years' War, it's important to understand that it wasn't a continuous war. Rather, it was a series of conflicts separated by truces, sometimes long ones, that could last for decades. Imagine a fire that burns intensely, goes out for a bit, and then flares up again. These breaks allowed both sides to recover, regroup, and sometimes even forget why they were fighting in the first place. However, the embers of the conflict, like old grudges, dynastic claims, and economic rivalries, were never fully extinguished and were easily rekindled. At the heart of the 100 Years' War was a dispute over the succession to the French throne. This war, which lasted over a century, was a series of intermittent conflicts that devastated France and changed the course of European history. King Edward III of England, grandson of the French King Philip IV, claimed the French throne upon the death of his uncle, Charles IV. Edward based his claim on his maternal lineage, as his mother, Isabella of France, was the daughter of Philip II. This claim, based on a complex line of succession, was rejected by the French nobility, who crowned Philip VI, thus beginning the Valois dynasty. Philip VI, cousin of Charles VI, was considered by the French nobles as the rightful heir to the throne. This dynastic dispute, like a large-scale chess game, became the main driver of the war, pushing both sides to fight for power and prestige. The battles were fought not only on the battlefields, but also in the courts and in political alliances, where every move was crucial. The 100 Years' War was a constant back and forth, with victories and defeats for both sides. This conflict, which lasted from 1337 to 1453, marked an era of instability and change in Europe. The English, with their powerful navy and military tactics based on the longbow, achieved important victories in the early stages of the conflict, such as the Battle of Crécy in 1346. This battle demonstrated the effectiveness of the English longbow, which could shoot arrows over long distances with great accuracy. However, the French, led by figures like Joan of Arc, managed to turn the tide in the second half of the war. Joan of Arc, a young peasant girl who claimed to have received divine visions, became a symbol of hope and resistance for the French. This series of victories and defeats, like a roller coaster of emotions, contributed to prolonging the conflict, as neither side was willing to accept defeat. The war was not only a struggle for territorial control, but also a battle for the honor and survival of each nation. Financing the war, alliances and resources. Maintaining a conflict for so long requires vast resources, and the 100 Years' War was no exception. Both England and France sought alliances and sources of funding to support their armies. The English, for example, had the support of some regions of Flanders, while the French allied themselves with the Kingdom of Scotland. These alliances, like invisible threads, wove a complex web of loyalties and interests across Europe, prolonging the conflict. Change on the battlefield, new tactics. The 100 Years' War also witnessed an evolution in military tactics and technologies. The English longbow, for example, proved to be a formidable weapon in the early stages of the war, decimating the ranks of the French cavalry. However, the French learned from their mistakes and adapted their strategies, developing new tactics and weapons such as artillery, which allowed them to counter the English advantage This constant military evolution, like a medieval arms race, contributed to prolonging the conflict. A century of conflict. Key factors. In short, the 100 Years' War lasted so long due to a complex combination of factors. The intermittent nature of the conflict, the dynastic dispute over the French throne, the balance of power between both sides, the alliances and financing, the evolution of military tactics, and the emergence of figures like Joan of Arc, all contributed to prolonging the war for over a century. It was a complex and multifaceted conflict that left a deep mark on the history of Europe. Final thoughts. Could it have ended sooner? Friends of Know and Win, the 100 Years' War, leaves us with a final question to ponder. Could this long conflict have ended sooner? Were there missed opportunities for peace? History, like a good book, invites us to imagine different scenarios and reflect on the consequences of our actions.